What's going on, everybody? It's the Hook Cam back again with another prospect preview, and today I do want to dive into my top 5 offensive tackles for this year's draft. And this is a very, very deep draft, offensive line wise, specifically at the tackle position, because I do really think that there are 4 legitimate day one starters who are coming out of this draft at the tackle spot, and I'll get into them in a second. But truly generational talent in this year's draft, and it has been a ton of fun to watch their film, and I'm excited to see where they end up going. Before we dive too far into this video, though, I do want to give a quick plug to Jackson Kruger Sports. If you don't follow his channel, if you're not subbed, I would highly advise taking a look at his channel already, and then of course subscribing and hitting the like button on this video for my channel as well, the Hook Cam. I'm gonna have a ton of stuff coming out post draft that I'm very excited to do. I do just kind of want to see where everybody's lining up, and then I'll start crushing through videos. So today's video, though, we're talking about the top 5 tackles in this year's draft, in my opinion. The first tackle that really stood out to me when I was taking a look at this year's draft is Andrew Thomas from Georgia. And Andrew Thomas, to me, is the most pro-ready offensive tackle that's coming out in this year's draft. And for some reason, I feel like he flies under the radar because there's the JEDRICK Wills and Tristan Wirfs and the mammoth of a human being in MEKHI BECTON. But Andrew Thomas, when you watch his film, his pass set is just absolute cash. He's hitting the right spots. He's doing a great job of setting to a point, not setting out to a player, not getting beaten inside. He's very, very firm with his inside arm. If the defender does try and move to that inside, he does a great job of stonewalling, sitting down in a chair, and really stopping a bull rush. There's so many things that he does well in terms of what he can bring to an offense and be pro ready. On top of his pass set, his ability to run block is next level, in my opinion. And he, on inside zones, when he's got to come down on a 3-tech, he's mauling that 3-tech. If there's a double team with him and a guard, they are getting great movement on that guard. Everything's firing at the same time. His feet, his hips, his hand. He's got great leverage with his hands. He does a great job of getting his pad level below the defenders and being able to move people. And I think that he is the most pro-ready offensive tackle in this draft as far as what his pass set is, how he run blocks, and just his overall athleticism. I really do think is next level. He is my number 1 tackle going into this year's draft. Now, the next guy that I have as my number 2 tackle, and he might end up turning some heads, is MEKHI BECTON. And for some reason, MEKHI BECTON, he's almost got this pre-draft bust label thrown on him. And maybe it's because of his size, maybe it's because people don't think he's as athletic, or maybe it's because people just haven't watched the film, and that's the popular thing. And a lot of times going into draft season, there's so much negativity around a player. There's so many people who are trying to find why you shouldn't draft a certain guy. And sometimes with a guy like MEKHI BECTON, you have to go based off of what his film is. And to me, MEKHI BECTON is deceptively athletic. I think that first off, he's 6'7". He's an absolute mammoth of a human being. Moves very, very well in space. I mean, some of the stuff that they asked him to do at Louisville, as far as him being able to reach block and him going out on screens and him being in space, he looks comfortable, right? And you look at his ability to block, especially wide zone, because Louisville ran a ton of that this year. He was able to reach guys, and reach blocking is not easy to do, especially at that size. But he's so long and he's so athletic, and he does such a good job of utilizing his length to either reach a guy, right, get to that play side shoulder pad and secure that edge. Or if that defender does want to play the outside and he is responsible for the edge of that defense, he uses his inside arm, extends it, straight arms him, and throws him out of the way. And then on top of that, you have some news anchors who are saying, oh, well, he doesn't finish well. He doesn't have that mean gene. What are you talking about? I mean, clip after clip of MEKHI BECTON throwing dudes, falling on him, finishing blocks, extending arms, running his feet. Everything that you ask a guy like MEKHI BECTON to do, he does. And to me, his run blocking, once he gets into the league and he's got a coach who can get everything out of him, who can get him to really refine his game, I think that he's definitely a raw prospect, but at the same time, I think that he has the highest ceiling in this year's draft. And for all that being said, I don't think that he's coming into this with a low skill set. His pass setting is outstanding. And you try and find me a guy in the NFL who's going to be able to get around a 6'7" tackle. Yeah, there are a few. Yeah, he's going to be challenged, but his pass set is outstanding for his size. I don't think that he depends so much on his length to be able to force guys to beat him to an edge. He's very quick in his set. He does a really good job of sinking his butt down and getting low leverage and being able to strike a defender and keeping him from bleeding to the inside of his pass set, right? He's strong enough to pound step down and work upfield and keep defenders from really working inside. He does a great job of that. I think that he is a freak athlete. I think that he's very strong, and I think he's deceptively athletic. And I don't really understand where this bust mentality comes from with him, but I think that when all is said and done, MEKHI BECTON definitely, I think, has the highest ceiling for potential in this draft. I mean, this dude, I really think, could be a 10-plus year starter and do everything you want. And again, this is a very, very deep draft as far as talent goes. But MEKHI BECTON, I'm very high on him. I think he does a lot of things very well. You watch his film from the Clemson game, and Clemson was an elite defense college football-wise, and he did a great job blocking wide zone, getting into his pass set. Is he going to get beat here and there? Yes, there's no such thing as a perfect prospect. But MEKHI BECTON, to me, isn't the guy that I look at and think, oh, he's going to be a bust. He's a guy that I look at, and if a team like the Browns could swipe him with the 10th pick, they go ahead and they bring in a guy like Bill Callahan, and Bill Callahan, a legendary O-line coach like that, mixed with a kid with the potential of MEKHI BECTON, is a recipe for success. Now, moving on to my number 3 top tackle in this draft is going to be JEDRICK Wills from Alabama. And JEDRICK Wills does a lot of things really well to me, right? He's very physical blocking in the running game. Anytime there's a double team with him and his guard, they're getting great movement on that 3-tech or that 4-eye. Wherever that defender lines up, they're doing a great job of getting movement. He's not extending his legs too early. He's not standing up. Very physical, does a great job using his hands, striking with leverage. All of that stuff looks very, very good to me. His pass setting as well looks good. He has a great base when he sets. His quick sets are outstanding. I don't think that when a quarterback's running drop back and he has to get a little bit more of a set and he's dropping more vertically, I don't think that he struggles. I do think that's part of his game that he can work on. His quick sets are outstanding, though. I don't see a lot of people being able to beat him and get to the quarterback when he's quick setting. On top of that, I think that he's very strong. So if he does set a little too far to the outside and a defender is cutting in, he's strong enough to put up that stop sign, right, with his inside hand and stop everything that's going down, pound, step down, squeeze that gap, and make sure that there's no room for that defender to come in. The tackles that we're talking about to this point are all outstanding athletes, and they're all going to excel at the NFL level. I really do think so. But JEDRICK Wills ends up at the 3 spot for me. Now, the number 4 and 3 and 4 are basically 3A and 3B. But number 4 is going to be Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. And again, another very, very physical tackle. A guy, at Iowa, they run a ton of power, run a ton of inside zone, ton of counter, and that means that there's going to be a tremendous amount of double teams. And Tristan Wirfs does a great job of getting movement, right? And you talk about another guy who does a great job with his pad level, a great job with his hands. He's striking in the right position. And not only is he striking at the right position and getting movement or getting good leverage, but he's moving his feet. He's firing his feet upon contact. Accelerate your feet upon contact and really start moving defensive tackles. And that's exactly what Tristan Wirfs does. Now, the one position that I do see him kind of being the same as JEDRICK Wills and is with his pass set. And there are some times where he does get into a quick set and, a defender does try and cut in because he sets out. And Tristan Wirfs, he doesn't have, I don't think, the same strength as JEDRICK Wills to really shut that down. He can be a little bit light in the pants sometimes when he gets into his pass set and a defender tries to bull rush or a defender tries to cut inside. There are times where he can get moved back. Now, with all that being said, that's all stuff that can be fixed. And I still think that Tristan Wirfs is going to be a good football player, especially at the pro level. But yes, I do have Tristan Wirfs ranked a little bit below JEDRICK Wills, but it's basically 3A and 3B at that point. Now, with the number 5 tackle in this year's draft, it was a kind of a toss-up because I didn't see a ton of guys who really separated themselves. The kid that I ended up going with at the number 5 spot is going to be Prince Tego WANOGHO from Auburn, and I hope that I said that right. And the reason why I picked Prince is because I did really like his pass setting, and I think that he did a really good job of not really hopping and clicking his feet together in the same way that Wirfs could do. And when you watch the Wirfs film, another one of the things that you can pick at is in his pass sets, he has a tendency to get his heels close together and skinny that base up throughout his set. Now, when he does end up setting and he gets to his spot and he sinks his hips, his feet are far apart and does a great job of carrying that base. I see a little bit of that with Prince as well. He does a good job with his sets. He does a couple of times he'll get skinny with his base, but for the most part, he has a great base. He travels with the base when run blocking, which is a very key point for offensive linemen. And the other thing with Prince that I noticed that kind of set him apart from the other guys who I was looking at that number 5 spot is he's very athletic in space, right? At Auburn, they ran a decent amount of screens. They actually even lined him up as a receiver at one point. He was on the line and he was covered up. He wasn't getting the rock, but they lined him up out there. They trust that he has the athletic ability in space to go out and make a block, not go out and catch a football. The one thing that I do notice about him with his pass setting is a tendency to leave his chest open, right? And when he's getting back into his set, he'll leave his chest open, which leaves space for a defender to work, right? You can strike into the middle of a chest. It does leave space for a defender to work. You can strike into the middle of his chest. You can throw moves, right? You can really work that leverage and create a soft edge for you to bend around. The other thing that I did like about Prince was the fact that he, once again, does a great job on it. He doesn't lose double teams. He doesn't really lose a lot of one-on-one blocks. There are situations where if he's up against a better athlete, he is going to lose due to athleticism and quickness in a short area. But all in all, I did like what Prince saw. I would put him as the number 5 tackle. Another thing that I do think he needs to work on, he's a little stiff below the waist sometimes. I do notice him extending his legs on run blocks, maybe extending his legs a little too much on the pass pro. But all in all, I do think that he's probably the 5th best tackle in this class. Lucas Niang is right behind him, as well as a couple other guys who I really liked. Austin Jackson coming out of USC. The only reason why I didn't put him at that number 5 spot, I think he has the athleticism, but I don't think that he's as refined as a kid like Prince is. Another guy who I really liked was Ezra Cleveland at Boise State. He has some really good film out there, but once again, I do think that his game is lacking in certain areas that I do think Prince has tightened up. So with all that being said, guys, those are my top 5 tackles for this year's draft. Video is going to be a little bit different, so bear with me on that. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Hope that this is coming out to you, and you're getting your pre-draft stuff ready to go. And go watch the film for yourself. See if I'm right. See if I'm wrong. I would love to talk about it in the comments below. But with all that being said, guys, that's all I got for you today. Before I sign off on this thing, if you could, make sure we're checking out Jackson Kruger Sports channel. Hit that subscribe button. And as well for my channel, The Hook Cam, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on this video. That's all I got for you guys today. I'm just as excited for the draft as anybody else. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you next time.